catback exhausts. They're so subjective to sound, and the new OEM stuff, you're not getting any performance gain out of it. You're just not. That and like strut tower braces on some of these newer cars. You just don't need them. They're there for
Yeah.
looks. But I'd say catback exhaust, the most overrated deal. I think the
Yeah.
cheapest catback that I've got for a 6th-gen Camaro is like $1,400. It's like,
Really?
yeah, they're not cheap. They're expensive.
Hey guys, I'm Josh Brown.
And I'm Jordan Stevens.
And you're watching the Cars and Health Bars podcast. Let's get right into the episode. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Cars and Health Bars. Today, we are joined by the president, Josh, of Operational Speed Supply Company that has become the go-to source for performance parts for Camaros, Corvettes, and other enthusiast platforms. Also, the host of the Sitrep Podcast. How are you doing tonight, Josh?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing great.
I'm so glad to have you on. We actually, I guess, kind of like we were talking before. A friend of mine, Brenton Miller, kind of put us in contact. But I'll say you kind of been on my radar on the low because me and Jordan, we keep up with Camaro Fest pretty closely because not only is it in our backyard, but I heard that you took it over, and I didn't really know who you was. I just know somebody took it over. But we'll get into more of that later. I want to start off by getting into, your operational speed supply. What is it? Where can we find it at?
Well, we're an automotive performance retailer, and we started, COVID kind of kicked it off. I was still active duty in the military at the time, and we got sent home, like, take your computers home, work off your computer if you're not in an infantry type position or something. And so I was in a staff job, and I had like 4 or 5 friends call me up and say, hey, I want to build my car. I'm ready to do some stuff. So I spec'd out some things for them depending on what they were trying to do. And after about the 3rd time I did that, I'm like, why am I sending these people off to other places to buy parts? I could do this. I could sell it. And so that was kind of the idea behind it. And I called my brother, and he was active duty at the time as well. And he's like, you know what, let's do this. So we built Operational Speed Supply, and we kind of just, it's taken off since then. And we had a couple really struggle time years. It was really difficult to kind of get things moving, but heck, man, 2026 hit, and it's been just a running at full steam ahead.
That's awesome. That's a cool grassroots story there. I think that's something a lot of people could be inspired to start a business from.
100%. It's entirely been a grassroots effort. And I think, if I could give anybody advice, we tried to start this and grow based off of everything we were doing, which was a really wide net. And it was really difficult to manage. I'd say for anyone, start local and build out rather than starting out and trying to build in. I think it added a little bit of difficulty into getting out there. But, once word finally did start to spread, it's like, hey, these guys have been around for a little while. They're doing some cool stuff. And, we tend to focus on road course and autocross. That's our bread and butter, but we're starting to expand into drag racing and the cruiser scene and that kind of stuff too. So
what do you kind of see the most of, road course and autocross still, or you see quite a bit of drag?
Well, we're starting to dabble into the drag side of things. Our biggest focus is suspension, brakes, and wheels and tires, that kind of stuff. I tend to avoid some of the engine stuff mainly because the EPA isn't barking at everybody right now, but they were, and I could see it happening again. And so I'll leave the emission stuff alone, the tuning and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we know about it. We know how to make it work, but we choose to kind of steer away from it. And so the biggest thing really has been that road course and autocross stuff. You can see it behind me here, the Ultimate Streetcar Association. We're a sponsor of that series for 2 different awards. One of them is the First Timer Award for the highest scoring first-time participant in an event, and then the other one's called the Surgical Strike Award, and that's for the fastest driver that hasn't hit any cones throughout the weekend, which anyone that's ever autocrossed realizes that's a really difficult thing to achieve and still be fast. And so we focus a lot on that, and I hate, I don't like to focus entirely on one thing, but at the same time, it has, Camaros and Firebirds have been our bread and butter, and we work on a lot of fifth and sixth gens.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the F body platform. There's a lot of different carriers of their parts. You see like UMI and BMR, especially for the fifth gen. But it's nice to see. It to me, it just seems like you're really particular about what you have on your site, and I really like that about OSS.
Yeah.
It seems like Viking, of course, being a big shout out. Like they're one of the best suspension component makers as far as like automotive industry goes.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is nice about you, is because a lot of times, especially people getting into it for the first time, they have a hard time specking stuff out on their own, or they buy a part that maybe necessarily they didn't know that they needed, or they might have bought not the best brand that they could have used for their setup. And I like how you kind of have like a one-stop shop. It's very straightforward, it really seems like.
Yeah, we really try to. Our biggest thing that we don't want to sell, cheap stuff. There's a difference between inexpensive and cheap, and it's a fine line though. We don't want to sell cheap stuff. So I don't do any of the offshore, private label brand on coilovers or anything like that. There's quite a few out there. It's just not for some people they could work, but for our customers we don't push any of that stuff. We'd rather see on stock shocks with lowering springs than we would on cheap coilovers. Just when it comes to handling, you're not going to have as good of a system. And we work closely with UMI and with BMR. BMR is 15 minutes away from me here in Florida, and
wow.
we actually did some testing with them. One of the big magical pieces that we've been trying to figure out is actual spring rates for the ZL1 1LE with the DSSV shocks, and so we had a set here. We spec'd out some Vikings for a customer. He had one of his DSSVs fail, and so we took the springs and everything and we measured out. So we have the capability to have an exact match of what that OEM spring rate was to match that ride that people had on those cars and the handling on those cars, with the ability to soften the dampening and bring it up for whether you're driving on the street or on the road course. So we keep that focused attention because it gives a better package to the end user, and we see what they're able to really accomplish a lot with the car, and we're happy with seeing what their results are.
Yeah, that's pretty cool because instead of changing its spring rate, they keep the same feel of the car. It's not changing the way the car drives. That's pretty cool.
Well, and it's interesting. We learned a lot by testing that. One of the things that kind of blew my mind is how stiff a ZL1 1LE is from the factory. For instance, on a 6th-gen Camaro, you bring a 6th-gen SS Camaro and you want to run 19 by 11s on it and set it up for autocross and road racing. We're going to start around 350 front, 650 pound springs in the back. When we measured out the ZL1 1LE springs, it blew my mind because GM from the factory put 450 pound fronts and 1,000 pound rear springs.
Wow.
Now, yeah, and the rear is not an apples to apples comparison because it uses a divorced spring and shock setup in the rear of those cars, and the coilover kit merges it all into a coilover. So there's a little bit different. We had to do some math to get the equivalent, but I think the equivalent rate for the rear spring would have been about I think 740 or 730 pound spring or so when you factor in the motion ratio and everything. And so we're right there close. We aired a little bit on the higher end of it, but it baffled me at how much spring they put into those cars, which shows how much effort they put into developing a car that can perform.
Yeah, and the 6th gen really is, especially the ZLE is the Camaro platform to perform.
Oh, man. They're incredibly fast out of the box, and it doesn't take a lot to make them even faster. And, it's a remarkable platform. They're very competitive just about anywhere right out of the gate.
Absolutely. I wanted to hit on one thing I'd noticed while browsing your site is it seems like one thing that's important to you is educating your customers on the products that you sell. I noticed, at the bottom of your page, there's several blogs on, specific parts that you use. How important do you think it is to educate people on the parts that you're selling?
Well, it's one of our things that we kind of one of our tenets. We got 4 tenets. We got strategize, optimize, educate, and equip, right?
Yeah.
And so with that, the education piece I think is the most important part. And one of the big deals especially when it comes to suspension, there's a lot of unknowns out there. There's a lot of internet fable, we'll say. When it comes to suspension, a lot of people make changes and it makes the car handle poorly. They think it handles good because it's bouncy and you feel every bump in the road, but the reality is that's not a good handling car. That is generally it's too much spring and not enough shock, and it will make it just not handle very well when you really start to put it through its paces. So educating on the why we're doing what we're doing, why are we running this spring rate? Why are we using this valving? you know, and then not only that, but how you can feel what the car is doing to make adjustments to be able to fine tune things. One of the big things we've noticed is that, and every company does this unless you're getting a racing sway bar. Most sway bars on the market are designed around stock suspension or stock spring rates. And so they're 150, 200% stiffer than stock. Well, if you put coilovers in your car, that's too much. It's too stiff. You're going to end up losing some mechanical grip because you don't have enough tire to really make it work, or you'd need slicks to be able to make it work. And so one of the things that we found, especially on these 5th gens, is if we're going to put you on coilovers, we're not going to sell you sway bars. There's no point, because once you get the coilovers on, the sway bar is going to be too much and you're not going to be able to soften it enough to make it work right. And so that's some things that we've kind of learned over time. And on the 4th gens, there's a little more option out there for race car specific stuff. And, it's like on both the 3rd gen and the 4th gen, they use identical rear suspension. And UMI came out with a splined rear sway bar. It's got 5 adjustments on it. Wow. And the softest is softer than the smallest OEM bar that they came with. And the firmest is stiffer than the biggest OEM bar they came with. So you've got a range of adjustment to fine tune the suspension and use that as a tuning tool. And so we like to make sure people understand that they can learn from those things, and we teach them everything we can. And one thing we do offer is, if someone buys coilovers from us and they're getting ready for a race weekend, let us know. We'll keep ourselves available to be able to help fine tune that while you're at the track. You can explain what's happening, and we'll walk you through setup and changes.
That is a valuable resource right there. What would you say is the biggest mistake people make when buying performance parts online?
They buy before they know what they really need. I'd say, one of the biggest things that anyone that wants to get into road course racing or into autocross, and I'd even throw this to drag racing too. I mean, that's not our expertise, but I'd throw it into there too. Go out, make sure your car is mechanically safe, mechanically sound, and just start driving it.
Yeah.
You don't need to buy all the performance parts right away. You need to drive it, learn the car, learn what it feels like. And, especially in an autocross road racing environment, cars are naturally designed to understeer, and they do that on purpose. They want that thing to push because it's safer for the car to hit in a crash in the front than it is for it to whip around and hit in the back when it comes to driver safety, and they do that on purpose. And so it's important to learn how to work through those things and learn how to drive the car as it sits. And then as the experience, increases, you can start to modify. And I would modify in stages. I wouldn't just throw the whole catalog at the car right away. We focus on building, and people's budgets. Not a lot of people can throw, $15,000 at a suspension package on their car in a weekend. And so we design it and build it in stages to slowly get people accustomed to different aspects of their car and learn different pieces, so it's not a fire hose of information at once.
I almost like that better too, because you talk about we're more or less from kind of a drag race or street racing scene where you throw $15,000 at your car on a blower setup immediately. You're going from probably a little over doubling your stock horsepower. It's, in my opinion, it's better to bleed into that horsepower in steps. Mm-hmm. It makes you enjoy the car so much more if you go from stock to a cam. You get an extra 75 horsepower, and then so on and so forth. It just I don't know it. And in my opinion too, I don't know if you're seeing this too, but the increase in performance parts in the industry right now, and I almost feel like it is getting harder for younger enthusiasts to get into this hobby, especially, like you talk suspension setup's really expensive. I mean, on both ends of the spectrum, whether you're drag, street, or track.
No, it really is, and that's one of the things that we've worked on is that community piece. Because at the end of the day, if we're not attracting new people to this, it's gonna slowly lose its luster. It's gonna slowly lose people, and it's gonna eventually go away. And so we've got to bring new people into it. And the cost of entry to racing is getting higher every day. And as much as we don't want to admit it, it is. Whether it's entry fees or fuel costs or just the cost of the car. I mean, a base model Mustang is almost $40,000 now, and that's just for a bare bones turbo 4-cylinder.
Yeah.
Let alone getting into a GT or any kind of a specialty model. Mm-hmm. And so we got to work through that, and if we can get people racing without spending $1 million right off the get go, I think we're in a good place because it gets that. It gets that bug, and then they can build in their time.
Yeah, I definitely respect that. I think it's almost like an overload of information and parts, because there's so many people who are kind of misinformed or misguided trying to tell people what to buy first. It's real hard for a newcomer to really decide what to do with their car. I mean, a lot of guys might go for doubling their horsepower first instead of building up, like some solid rear and front suspension or driveline,
Well, and you get on Facebook or you get on the forums and you ask, hey, I just bought I bought my first performance car. It's a 2011 Camaro or a 2015 Mustang or whatever. And like, what should I do? And you'll get 50 different responses of what they should do first. And at the end of the day, it is difficult to navigate through that. And we've got our method, and there's a lot of other companies that have their method, and I'm not going to say any one of them is wrong or right. There's different ways to look at and approach things, but our approach is focused on driver first, car second, and getting the seat time, getting the enjoyment out of the car, I think is paramount. We're firm believers. If you're going to buy an older car and you want to build it, get the thing running and drive it, and then slowly start chipping away at it so you're enjoying it. There ain't nothing worse than somebody having a car on jack stands for 4 years and they never end up getting to it, and they end up selling the car in pieces because they never got around to driving it.
Yeah.
That sounds a little personal to Josh here.
Yeah, that's rough, man.
I had a third generation Camaro I was building for, probably about 4 years, and I eventually just gave up on it. It was sad to let her go, but just I couldn't have two at once. I got a 5th generation Camaro also, and building two at once gets kind of expensive.
It does, man. It does. I daily drive a 4th gen, and I got my 3rd gen race car. So the 4th gen, it's bone stock. I think that I put a stereo in it and headers on it, and the headers I found local used for about $100. So
nice.
That's all it's got done to it, man.
That's all you need really to enjoy the car anyways,
No, man. It cruises good. It gets 26, 27 miles a gallon cruising on the highway. So
wow. And
bone stock, man.
It's way better than my 5th gen.
Right.
Oh, man, I know it.
And you Camaro guy at heart. I mean, it makes sense why you take over a Camaro Fest. You rocking too. I mean, I knew, of course, you were big time because of OSS, but I didn't know you had 2 of them personally. That's pretty cool.
Well, and I had a 5th gen. I had a 5th gen. I went through a little bit of ups and downs in life, and ended up selling it. And when I was able to get back into a car again, I bought the 3rd gen. I'm like, you know what? It's a new me. It's a new car, and I'm going to build this thing from the ground up. And then it turned into a full caged race car. So it's rough and tumble, man.
I love it, man. I was gonna save that for like our shotgun questions at the end, but man, we've got one guy that follows us on TikTok. He's got I think it's called Spectator Drags, but it's a 3rd generation Camaro Nardo Gray, and that thing just it's very tasteful. It's everybody thinks about the 3rd gen being a really good drag platform, but seeing it do autocross is a sight to see. Like seeing that just whip around the corners. Oh man, it's
didn't it have the best drag coefficient of any Camaro, or am I wrong?
The 3rd gen Firebird did. So the 3rd gen Firebird had like the lowest drag coefficient of anything they built, even the C5. Like, you could set that thing up, dude.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was incredible. The thing's it's a bullet in the air, man.
Wow. I did not know that. That is really cool.
I love the third generation. I think it's slept on.
It is.
Oh man, and the funny thing about the third gen and the fourth gen, so the fourth gen and the third gen use identical rear suspensions.
Yeah.
Everything's the same from right about below the driver's seat back. It's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And GM knew what they were doing when they built that torque arm suspension in that thing, because it works, and it works really well. And you look at like aftermarket right now, Speed Tech. If you're building a car to race, I'd suggest going with a Speed Tech chassis. They are, when it comes to racing an old pro touring car, they are the ones to go to, and their primary go-to rear suspension for any platform is a torque arm rear suspension. And you look at all the Mustang guys out there, all the Fox body dudes, if they're going to really get into racing, they're getting rid of that triangulated four link and they're throwing in a torque arm in that thing, and it works. It works really well.
Yeah, I will say I was guilty. I was one of those customers back then. Whenever I first started building mine, I was super uneducated. I think I bought a UMI, a Trans Cross member, and not paying attention. I bought the non torque arm one, and I just that was another one of those things. Like, gosh dang it, now I got to return a part and get the UMI one that actually has the torque arm attachment. Like, it's that's just another reason why your brand OSS is so good, because you guys are there to help the customer. Not to know what they need for their cars.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, Jordan. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
I think there's not enough engine part manufacturers that are kind of building that kind of relationship. I fell victim to that kind of, buying a part I didn't need on my fit-in for rocker arms. And, I didn't need rocker arms. The OEMs are phenomenal in the LS. So it's just funny that there's an abundance of parts and no one's really educated on it.
Well, and the hard part is that what sells is big time numbers. It's like, I made 800 horsepower with this cam and head package, or I did this, or I ran a 980 on a stock bottom end motor with no engine mods or whatever. You got all these numbers that everyone wants to throw out, and it's hard to decipher through that. And the reality is, anyone getting into this, you could go buy the biggest engine, and if you want to get into racing, that's fine. But it takes a lot of people a lot of years to do this. And I'm a decent driver. Certain events I can run at the top of the charts, and certain events I'm going to run mid pack. And I know where I sit skill set wise. And it's not that I couldn't be better, I couldn't be faster. But the reality is that there's some of these guys that they've been racing competitively for as long as I've had my driver's license. And when you stop and think about how much time some of these folks have behind the wheel, if they would have made a different decision in life, they'd be racing professionally, whether it be an IMSA or NASCAR or NHRA, running pro stock or, something like that. These guys are amazing drivers. And so for the average person out there that wants to get into this, your expectation management needs to be, you are new, and that seat time is going to get you farther than anything else that you could modify your car with. I've been beat by bone stock cars because the driver was just that good.
We say that all the time. Me and Jordan, funnily enough, we call it driver mod, especially like doing digs and stuff. Because you're making all the power in the world. You got a guy that's can dig you out of a hole. It's that's why roll racing is kind of like it's definitely frowned upon, because it's just like it's a horsepower game. Like it's going to be whoever can make the most horsepower. But there's nothing like that driver skill. You can't pay for that seat time.
No, it takes experience. It takes time. That's the only way you're going to get good.
Yeah.
What kind of events would you recommend for someone wanting to, get into maybe road course or autocross, just kind of get behind the wheel and learn to drive their car competitively?
Well, HPDEs are a great place to learn the ropes of the track. You'll learn flags. You're going to learn etiquette, how to, getting onto the track, your on ramp, so to speak, and onto the track, how to come off track and those things, hand signals, all that stuff. It's a great place for HPDEs. For autocross, I would say any autocross that you can get to. So, in the Bowling Green, Central Tennessee, Middle Tennessee area, there's a lot of events. And this coming summer, you've got Drive Auto Extreme, 2 days of autocross. You're going to probably get 20 to 30 laps, and you're not chasing cones. SECA stuff, you're going to have to help pick up cones and and do that kind of stuff, you're probably going to get about 6 runs a day at an SCCA event, but it's way cheaper. They're very, very inexpensive. A lot of SCCA regions have a novice class specifically for newcomers, and there's a class for everybody. So they'll help you get your car class and get in there. And then like this summer, starting at NCM, it actually starts the same week as Camaro Fest, but they've got Autocross Week, and it starts at NCM, and it's going to go down into Nashville, run a couple different tracks, come back up. It's like a drag and drive, but for autocross.
That's cool.
And so those are the kinds of events, and like Camaro Fest, we design it specifically around novice people. And a lot of people have asked us if we wanted to create a novice class for Camaro Fest, and my response is we could, but if we did, we'd have half the field in novice, and then the other half would be competing. So we choose not to, specifically because the majority of our participants are relatively novice, and they drive once or twice a year, and that's kind of what they do. And so we kind of built around that and focus on that crowd of people as opposed to the professionals or the really experienced folks.
Speaking on Camaro Fest, we're trying to transition there. How long have you guys been over Camaro Fest? Because I think maybe Jordan was it Camaro Fest 10 was the last ones under the old whoever was over it prior. I could be wrong on that.
So I went to my first Camaro Fest in 2013. It was at Lucas Oil Raceway Park. I had my 5th gen there. Autocross. It was a great time. It was, I think, the biggest one they did. The parking lot party had over 1,000 Camaros.
God,
it was insane. Yeah, and it was only 5th gens back then too. So you got to think about this. It was just 5th gens. There was no others. There was no Firebirds. Nothing else. Mm-hmm. Over 1,000 cars in the parking lot party. And Lingenfelter was there. Chevrolet was there. I mean, I met Al Offenhauser. He just retired. I met him there at Camaro Fest, and Mike Copeland when he ran Lingenfelter, and all these big names, and it was a big deal. And then after I sold the car, I kind of got away from it for a little while, and I came back when I moved back to Tennessee, and got involved with it again. And when I came back and got involved with it, it was being ran by a couple people, Joe Bell and Mike Lee, and they did a really good job keeping this thing going. And COVID year, they didn't run it. They came back the next year and did it in 21 as a single day event, and then 22 kind of kicked back off with what we see it as now. And in 21 I raced. In 22 we sponsored the autocross, and then in 23 the people that were running the autocross were not able to run it anymore. And so Joe had asked. He's like, I need somebody to run it. I'm like, well, I can run it. We were running the Operation Autocross, or the Clarksville Autocross, what we call it back then, in Clarksville, Tennessee. And so we come and we started running it, and we had involvement on the autocross side of things since then. And then, as time progressed, Joe and I became really close friends, and he's got some other ambitions in life that he wants to pursue, and Camaro Fest was just taking a lot of time to run. Yeah. Mike Lee had retired, and he still comes to the event. He still enjoys it, but he retired and didn't want to put a ton of time into it as well. And, again, those guys did such an awesome job at keeping the thing going. And so we worked out a deal where, I bought the assets away from Joe and everything, and formed a new company to kind of manage the event itself. And since then we've injected a lot of attention to it. So my background on the event side is, I ran that autocross series, and then I've also had the privilege to work with the company that puts on all of the Holly events. And so I've worked on the backside of the events. Yep. I've been working for FM3 for quite some time, and they've been great mentors to me. I did my internship on leaving the Army with them, and so I've learned a lot about the performance event side, plus my background with the military side, and that's how we took it over. After the end of last year was kind of a handover year for us to understand it, and then at the end of the year we took it over. I think it was September is when we finalized everything, and we started pushing full steam ahead for 2026.
So this is going to be your guys' first full year of full control of Camaro Fest.
Yeah, it is. It's our first year. And a couple of the things that we've implemented to really help grow the event is I've got a pretty wide network in the performance industry with different companies we've worked with. potential sponsors and vendors, things like that.
Yeah.
So I leveraged that, and them knowing me from everything else I've done, it helped kind of, grease the skids, so to speak, to get us, at least a talking point.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other couple things that we looked at doing is, we looked at what have people been talking about over the past few years? Well, the Midway has been one of the questions. We want to see people in the Midway. We want to see companies. We want to see vendors. The other thing is that there's always been talk about the track prep at the race has never been that great. And historically, they've relied on Beach Bend to manage the event from the racing perspective on the drag race. And they kind of just organized, classes that would run, and that'd be kind of that. And it worked for, a hangout style event. But when we looked at it, we saw what some of the serious folks were saying, and then we were kind of looking at what can we do to make things better. We brought in a gentleman by the name of Roger Conley. And Roger has got 35 plus years of drag racing. He owns a company called Motorsports Tech Services, and they run drag races. He worked with the NMCA back when the NMCA was still running events and everything. He is the guy that runs all of the drag racing for Holly events and as well as a bunch of others. And he's also on a crew for a pro mod team that does, pro mod stuff. And so he's got a wide variety of experience.
Wealth of knowledge.
And so exactly, a wealth of knowledge. And so we brought him in to run the drag race for us this year. With that, we also reached out and listened to what everybody was asking for. And, the all motor class has become very popular, especially amongst the Gen 5 LT crowd.
Yeah.
And so we made a class specifically for it. And I think it's probably going to be one of our more popular classes this year with the late model stuff.
I've seen,
and so
I think Prey Performance, isn't he sponsoring that class?
Yeah, Brett Stewart, Prey Performance is doing it, and we're pumped to see him, be part of this. It's funny because he draws a crowd, and there's people that love Prey, there's people that hate Prey. Yeah. The internet drama is 100% out there, and the funny thing about him is he's a wealth of knowledge, and the thing I think that a lot of people don't like about him is that he speaks his mind, and there is no toning down anything that he says. He speaks his mind. He speaks what he thinks, what he feels, and that's the end of it. And if you don't like it, he doesn't care if you don't like it. And that frustrates a lot of people. And so, but he's going to be there. We got Vengeance Racing coming on board as the drag race sponsor, and so that was a big one for us.
That's cool.
They've been around for so long, and so. We really put some attention to that. And I think from the participant standpoint, I've got a good relation with VP Racing, and they are sponsoring all of the traction compound for this year. We will have more traction compound for the weekend than we've ever had. And so our track prep is the best you're going to get for a 95-degree day in July.
Yeah.
It's hard to prep a track, but we will have the best prep that you could possibly have there during that time. So
I want to thank Blackout Coffee for sponsoring this episode of the Cars and Health Bars podcast. As you know, I work a blue-collar job just like most of you all do, and I need me a cup of joe to get me started first thing in the morning. I always like to hit some of this dark roast, brother. It puts hair on your chest, gets you good and woke up. And hey, if you got a wife like mine that loves some coffee, they've also got flavored coffee options such as jelly donut, salted mocha, cinnamon French toast. Look at the ratings on that, brother. Almost 1,500 5-star reviews. I've been drinking some of that good dark roast to get me started. And hey, they've even got instant coffee. We've all been there running late for work. Grab you one of these and dump it in your water bottle. You got coffee on the go. I want to again thank Blackout Coffee for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Go on over, support our sponsors, support our troops. Good old America. Get you a cup of Blackout Coffee, brother. Our first sponsor today, of course, you know them, you love them, Chemical Guys. They have the best car care products in the game. Of course, my favorite products here, you got the starter kits. I highly recommend the starter kits to any of our listeners because it is the greatest way to get a bulk amount of products. It's just the best bang for your buck. Even the mini arsenal, it comes with everything you need. It's got the honeydew soap. It's got the spray wax. It's got the bucket, the foam cannon. It's got everything you need. This Cars 10 site-wide for 10% off your order. Thanks Speedway Motors for sponsoring the podcast. One of my favorite parts, wiring harness. They have a DIY wiring harness. So if you are not that good at wiring, they have a full kit that is a universal. You just pick what circuit you want. It is as simple as you get it. They have a lot of parts for your older cars. It's hard to beat these deals. Some of the best prices. That's always what I've known them for, is the really good prices, the really good quality. So yeah, guys, hop on over there. See if they've got something for your build, and use our affiliate link so they know that we sent you. And with that being said, guys, let's get right back into the topic. I will say, as somebody that lives in Bowling Green, and we go to as many events as we can, especially at Beach Bend, from what I see, the local reception of Camaro Fest really needs some repair because of what you said. All the locals that I talk to, I mean, I'm talking about guys that do own Camaros, guys who do own GM cars. They're like, well, it's just a hangout where cam fifth gens run 12-second passes all day, and they talk about the lack of vendors. So you moving in and taking this to the next level is going to be so crucial to this event firing back up. And I'm so excited to hear of what you're going to transform it into, because I've been to Camaro Fest. I think the last one I went to might have been 2024, 2023, and I raced my car, and it is fun. It is a smaller compared to LS Fest. You get plenty of runs in. I mean, I'd say as many runs as you can in. I mean, LS Fest, you get lucky to get one qualifier, and it would be cool to see, that event get. I don't think anything get to the magnitude of LS Fest, but who knows? But it would be cool to see it get, bigger than it has been the previous years.
Well, and my philosophy on this, and having worked LS Fest and having been a participant of LS Fest and having been a spectator of LS Fest,
yeah,
it's a blast, but it is huge. And I think last year it was well over 40,000 people for the whole weekend.
It was insane.
It was. It's absolutely insane. And so for Camaro Fest, my philosophy on this is when we hit a certain threshold. I don't know what this number is yet. We got to kind of gauge what it looks like when we're there. But once we hit a certain threshold of attendance to where it's starting to crowd a little bit, it's not crowded, but it's starting to crowd. That's the point in which we don't stop the event. We don't move the event. We build another one. We start another Camaro Fest, and we've got relationships with other tracks, good tracks. I actually had a conversation today about doing something in the Midwest where we could potentially bring a Camaro Fest like event to the Missouri area near Kansas City. There's a really nice facility out there that has enough space to do an autocross and a drag race, and we would lose the road course side of things, which that's a very popular piece of it, but we would gain another location, and we could potentially keep this one at a kind of a steady state, and then be able to grow the fest events, the Camaro Fest events elsewhere. So, you get other people that normally can't go because it's too far away, they can go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would enjoy that. I think a lot of people like to road trip to Missouri, from the Bowling Green area or somewhere. It's not a bad drive. They almost do like a drag and drive maybe.
Yeah, it's really not. I think the location where we're looking is about 8 hours away from Clarksville, Tennessee, so maybe 9 for you guys in Bowling Green. Actually, probably the same, given you could hop on the Parkway and just head up right up towards 57.
That's how I've always went.
So I'll hit one more thing on Camaro Fest is, are you guys also going, because the one I went to, at least, there wasn't much of like a car show portion. It was mostly just like go through the pits and what's there is there. Are you guys going to like have a car show section this upcoming year?
So that was another one of the big things that we look to address is the car show. It's been a pretty good deal, but what we wanted to do this year is we wanted to, again, professionalize what we were doing. And so we brought in Melanie Henry. Her and her husband run a car show organization out of Pennsylvania called Mel's Car Shows. And they've been doing it about 12 years. And so they are very well versed in handling very large shows, having different classes and different ways to kind of do things and the way they judge. One thing that's interesting is that they have 5 judges for the car, and whoever is the judge for the engine bay judges every single engine bay. They don't rotate.
Okay.
So one person sees that. So there's never any kind of bleed over where one car might get judged differently from another. It's the same people for the same areas of the vehicle. And the way we've set it up is, and we're going to publish a lot of this stuff coming soon here in the next couple of weeks, but there's a spot where everyone's going to get their cars judged at, and then they're going to be able to drive, and we'll have specific car show parking for those that are in the car show, because that is an add-on to the event.
Yeah.
And so we've got it set up to where they'll have specific place for the car show folks, and then they'll have a place to get the cars judged and everything, and they'll kind of drive through. Again, trying to promote flow of traffic through the facility. Beach Bend's a unique facility with the way it's shaped and designed, having the river and everything run around it. So we want to make sure we address that.
Yeah.
And then the other side of things is in the Midway. We are working through the Midway, and on that, we're building it to be very shopping mall style, outdoor shopping mall setup.
Okay.
And with that, it's going to be open. We're guiding everybody through there. In the past, everyone got their event T-shirts at the meet and greet. We're changing that. You're not going to get them until the next morning at the track.
Thank you.
It's going to be in the Camaro Fest booth that we'll have set up at the very back of the Midway. And that's all by design. Man. We want everybody to walk through the Midway. We want everyone to see there. And we'll have a showcase. We'll have some featured cars showcase there. And it just depends on who we're able to bring in. And we're working on potentially bringing a couple pro mod cars out to, either look at or potentially make some passes. People would see that stuff. And
oh, yeah. That draws a crowd.
Yeah. And so we're really focused on trying to, again, professionalize what we've been doing. And then, like with the autocross, we've made some changes to how the autocross is working. We've kind of refined a few things with us running it, but the gentleman we're bringing in this year has got a lot of experience across different events. He's ran Grid Life. He's ran the Ultimate Streetcar Association. He's ran SCCA. He has ran a lot of them, and he has a really good understanding of what works and what doesn't. So he's kind of running a hybrid model of grid and tech and on-course driving, and we're going to have run groups, and we're going to have a times set up for the run groups that will not strictly follow, but it'll be close to it. So if somebody shows up and their car gets classed in C2, they know roughly when they're going to run. So if they want to go look at the rest of the show, they're not stuck sitting at their car for 4 hours waiting on their laps.
Yeah.
And so they'll be able to get their times in. They'll be able to get, and then go enjoy the rest of the show. Or if they want to break off and drag race, they can do that. We don't want to limit anyone.
Sounds like you brought in like a heavy hitter in every little aspect of it.
Yeah.
It sounds like this is gonna go off without a coattail. Like, it sounds awesome. You mentioned the shirt. I know the one year that I did go, I think I was working night shift at the time in Bowling Green, and I made it to the meet and greet, but I was on my lunch break, so I had to rush back. So like all I had time to do was grab my my wristband and leave. I'm like, dang, I really wanted a shirt, but I couldn't get one because like I said, I had to go back to work.
Yeah, we're going to set it up so that, the wristband, everybody's going to get their wristbands and everything the day of, the meet and greet, but the shirts and all that are going to be we're going to have a merchandise booth for all the Camaro Fest stuff. And we're working on some cool stuff. We're working on getting some hats done. We're going to have some shirts,
Cool.
The event shirt, the official event shirt. And we're working with Joe Bella on historic shirts. So he's recreating. It's taking a little bit of time because some of these shirts were made 15 years ago, so we're trying to recreate past shirts so people that theirs might be worn out, they can get another shirt that is
I love
from
that.
a past event.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So we're working on those things and really trying to bring that stuff, and we're going to set it up to where the website will have merchandise online throughout the entire year. So shirts or Christmas ornaments, things like that we're trying to kind of bring up. We're really wanting to make people enjoy what they have and be proud of it. I mean, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot going on there with it. So,
are you guys still going to do? Are you guys still going to work with the convention center with having like I think y'all always have a huge after party or after meet like. I think don't you like a two-step or rev battle towards the end of the night? I know there was one last year.
Yeah.
At least.
So we have met with the convention center, and they've been more than helpful. So we're going to do the meet and greet inside, like we always do. This year we're going to have a projector set up, and it's going to be cycling through event information. And one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to take pictures of every location that you need to know about. So if you're going to drag race, this is where tech is. Here's a picture of the building you're going to go to tech at. And we're going to have pictures of that so people can see all that as they're filtering, filing in, so we can, when we have our meet and greet, we talk to everybody. We've also got the parking lots set aside for us for the entire weekend. And so, yeah, we'll have, we're working on some live entertainment for Friday evening.
Nice.
Yeah, we're working on live entertainment there. It's a really fun band out of Indiana. They're a heck of a good time. So I don't want to announce anything on that yet. We've got to confirm that everything is going to be good for those guys to be there and equipment and all that stuff. And then we'll run the party every night, man. And that 10 p.m. unofficial cackle fest, man. Everyone's revving up and just it's crazy.
Yeah, our buddy Brian Kimball, you might know him, you might not. He's got a 4th-gen Camaro, big turbo, and he's always over there just banging two-step. He's one of the most genuine locals we have. I think it's Sunset Orange 4th-gen. Oh my God, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
but
that's cool.
Yeah, I want to get into the podcast too, and then I've got some shotgun questions here at the end.
Heck yeah, man, throw it.
Man of many hats, fellow Josh podcaster here.
Man.
The Sitrep Podcast. I got to know, what inspired you to start the podcast?
So I hired a business coach early on, and initially I was just I was in a group that he had created. It was just people kind of bringing up questions, talking. He'd throw like a lesson in here and there. And my business coach is Tony Watley. And for those that don't know who Tony Watley is, he is one of the co-founders of ls1tech.com. And so he started that. Yep, he co-founded ls1tech.com. They built it and they sold it at the height of the forum days, and he used that money to build other businesses. And he's ended up retiring. He got out of he was working in the oil industry for a lot of years. He got out of it, and now he just does coaching. And now he does coaching, and he started handling acquisitions. And so he's been a big part of acquisitions of a couple of these major mergers and these major acquisitions some of these companies have had over the past few years. And he's been invaluable. And he talked about getting in front of people, getting the podcast out there, and being there. And so that was kind of what we started with. And I'll tell you, man, the first 6 months of doing it, the 4 viewers that I had on it on Facebook Live were people that I knew because I asked them to watch it. And now we're finally beyond that, And one thing that I've learned on this podcast, most people quit after about 6 months to a year, and then that's kind of the end of it. But if you stay around and you keep it relevant, it'll continue to grow. And so we try to keep it lighthearted. We don't script anything. And we just run with it. And sometimes the conversations will go off the deep end, and sometimes they're educational. We've had Willwood, we've had Redline Oil, we've had UMI Performance has been on. We've had a couple big names that have been on there to talk through different things. Viking's been on. So we bring that stuff on to help educate people, but at the same time we want to have fun and give people an update on the industry. I think our most probably proud episodes that we've had of where we've been talking about the state of motorsports and what we can do to keep it growing and keep it alive for years to come.
Yeah, that seems to be a real popular topic. I mean, you go to PRI and it seems like that's always like a big topic they're hitting on over there is the future of motorsports.
They do. And the one thing that frustrates me when it comes to that is that the discussions are always surface level. In my mind, the reality is the future of motorsports depends on us being responsible, right? The takeover stuff can't be happening. Yeah. That stuff can't be happening, but that's a given. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that we can't act like idiots or we're not going to lose it. But what I think a lot of people forget about is everybody around us that's not into cars. When you pull up to somebody and they're in a whatever car, family car, and you're sitting there, they're looking at you like you're crazy. They don't understand. Yeah. And I think one of the hardest things that we have to deal with isn't other enthusiasts acting like idiots. It's getting people that aren't part of the community to understand why this is so important to us, why we're so passionate about it. And we end up, and we do this in everything in life, but everybody always kind of talks in their own little groups, their own little bubbles, and it never goes outside of that. And I think we do a very good job of sharing our passion outside of it, and not to bring them in, but to educate people on what it is that we do and why we do it. And I think that's part of the reason why you see tracks that get sold, because everyone moves in around it, and they get mad at them.
Yeah.
If I were a track owner and I owned it in a place and I saw people encroaching on me, like Beach Bend doesn't have this issue because they're in a floodplain. They're never going to have an issue with this at Beach Bend.
Kind of like NCM but other tracks, a little bit.
Yeah, NCM could be a little bit, but there's a track down here they opened up a couple years ago called the Motor Enclave. And they not only do track events, but they also work with the community. They host UFC events, they host concerts, they have cars and coffees, and the cars and
Okay.
coffees are free to come. There's free donuts, there's free coffee, and you can come and just hang out. They got music and entertainment, and it's a community engagement thing. So people that don't care about racing can come out and have fun.
Yeah.
I
It's like a
think
free car show.
yes, exactly. And I think that's the biggest thing missing for us is engaging those people that don't care about racing. They don't care about cars. And they think it's just a noisy car that's not running correctly because it has a low pin idle. That's not the case.
That's a really
that's
unique
just not.
perspective.
So
I never really thought about it that way.
but and that's because you got to think about it. Like even in Bowling Green, the hot rod capital of the Midwest, the South. There's a lot of people there that are not into this, and
Yeah.
they know the tracks are there, but they're not into it. That's not their
Right.
thing. But getting people to understand what we're about, I think, is the biggest key to ensuring long-term survival of motorsports.
Yeah. I want to ask you one more question about your podcast. I want to know, how has the podcast helped grow OSS?
It puts us in front of people, and so it puts us in front of people across the world. And what really stood out to me is that I went to SEMA this last year. We were competing in the Ultimate Streetcar Invitational, and it was Monday night or something. Yeah, it was Monday night, so the show hadn't started yet. But a guy came out from the inside of the convention center. He's working with some other company. I don't remember which, but he comes out there and he's like, "Hey, I came all the way out here, man. I'm in the West End Hall or something like that. I just wanted to come say hi, meet you in person." And it blew my mind because the podcast has given us reach and relatability that nothing else has. Because not everyone's going to meet us at a race, but everyone can watch and hang out with us here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like yours too, because you do Facebook Live. So like you are getting, people are talking to you while you're doing it. You're taking questions, and that's something that we haven't dabbled in quite yet, but I respect that you do it live. That's really cool.
It was nerve-wracking the first few times, and I'm funny about it though. I have never listened to my own podcast after the fact. I have never done it, and I roll with it. And if the viewership's there and the comments are there, then boom, we had a good show. And if they aren't, then well, either I didn't market it well enough or I was boring that night.
Hey, we all have those. I've got some shotgun questions for you as we wrap up here.
Yeah, man.
Like I said, you answer them however you want to. As a as a performance parts supplier, I got to know, what is the most overrated mod in your opinion?
Catback exhausts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're so subjective to sound, and the new OEM stuff, you're not getting any performance gain out of it. You're just not. That and like strut tower braces on some of these newer cars, you just don't need them. They're there for looks. But I'd say catback exhaust the most overrated deal, and they've gotten so dang expensive. I think the cheapest catback that I've got for a 6th gen Camaro is like $1,400.
And
it's
like,
really?
Like they're not cheap. They're expensive, and honestly, if you're buying a cheap catback, you're probably downgrading to aluminized steel, not the stainless steel that came on the car. So it's going to end up rusting anyway.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
On the other end of the spectrum, what would you say is the most underrated mod?
Suspension. Everybody wants power. They want to hear the thump. They want to. But
I'm trying to tell Josh.
Don't you look at me, Jordan.
Yeah, I'll take a 400 horsepower. You give me 2 5th gen Camaros, and one of them you leave one bone stock engine, but you put a full suspension package on it. And we don't do everything. I don't. For a road course build, we don't change lower control arms in the rear. We don't change trailing arms. There's no need. But we will do subframe bushings, diff bushings, and toe links. And then we'll do front radius rod bushings and coilovers. You give me a car with that setup on a stock engine versus one that didn't do any suspension mods We put him on the same tires and the same brakes, no suspension mods, but he's got a heads cam package. That car on suspension is going to run circles in every aspect around that other car with a heads cam package, even at the drag strip, because you can put the power down, you can get that thing to handle, and your corner speed of an autocross or at a road course is going to be 5 to 10 miles an hour faster than you would be on the stock suspension. And it's reliable. Like, it's still reliable. You ain't got to deal with broken valve springs or bronze guides that wear out quicker than, the OEM stuff, or, too much lift or whatever it is,
Yeah. What would you say is the best bang for your buck mod?
Seat time.
Fair enough.
Seat time.
Like that.
We're in the business of selling stuff, but at the end of the day, if you have $5,000 to spend on a car, on parts, right? And you take that money and you just focus on going to every race you can and tires, because you're going to wear tires out. Buy good tires and go to every race you can. You are going to be light years faster than if you took that $5,000 and spent it on suspension and brakes and wheels.
Fair enough. What part do people typically cheap out too much on?
Coilovers. There's a company out of Taiwan that makes most of the eBay or the lower, cheaper models of stuff. And on a 5th gen, for instance, if you're spending $1,400 or less on a set of coilovers, you're not getting a good package. And
I already know who you're talking about.
They're all the same, and I don't care what color their springs are. They're all the same coilovers.
Yeah.
The shock bodies on those are generic. They are not made for a Camaro. They are made for 15 different cars, and then they just make a different lower mount and an upper mount.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the valving on most of them, some of them are double adjustable, but most of the valving adjusts both compression and rebound in the same rate. And that is horrible. You generally, for comfort, you want less rebound, more compression. And you want them both low, but you want a little less rebound. That's what's going to give it a really firm ride. When you're doing performance stuff, you got to increase that rebound a little bit. And if you're going to have a single adjustable shock, don't mess with compression, just mess with rebound. That's going to give you more benefit than you would having, do anything else. But cheapen out on those things, because they're not meant for the car. They're generally oversprung, and they don't handle the dynamics that you would get with a higher quality shock. And Viking's one of our big primaries, and they're a great economical shock for what you get. They're custom valve, they're double adjustable, every one of them, no matter what line you get, they're all double adjustable or more. And we spring them based on the car and what you're doing. So, like, for instance, we sold an L8T block to a guy who blew up his LT1 in his 6th gen. And because of the heavier block, we sprung him with a different set up front to make sure to compensate for the weight. But that's not the only thing. We've got MCS shocks out there, which are a higher tier. They're a high-end shock, and they're a great shock. I don't think they're better in quality than Viking, but it's a different feel you're going to get out of them. They're a different design. And so, if we're going to spend money on anything, don't cheap out on coilovers. It is not going to help. It's going to ride poorly, and it is not going to handle the way you want it to.
100%.
Some great advice, sir.
Yeah, you heard it here, folks. Do not cheap out on your coilovers. So, Josh, where can people find you, your podcast, OSS, all that good stuff? Give us all the shout-outs, all the plugs.
All the details. So we've got our Facebook page. It's at OSS Parts on both Instagram and Facebook. And so on Facebook and our YouTube channel, which is also at OSS Parts, we've got the live broadcast every Monday night at 8 Eastern, 7 Central for our podcast, the Sitrep. This weekend, we're going to be doing a preview for the Ultimate Streetcar Association NOLA race down at New Orleans. But we'll have industry experts on from time to time. We're going to talk Camaro Fest. We're going to talk all those things. And then our website, ossparts.com, is where you can find all of our product line. And we're actually doing a lot of website upgrades right now, so we're a little bit light on our normal product offering on there, but we're cleaning things up and we're fixing the search function on there, so it's a lot easier to index and find things, and we're just making it look appropriate for what we want to do. But for this year, if you want to come find us in person, well, we're going to be at Camaro Fest. We're also going to be at Hot Rod Power Tour this year. We're running through that. We're going to be at we're going to be at Havlic's fastest streetcar shootout in August, and then we're also going to be at Hot Rod Drag Week in September. So we're going to be out and about. So anyone wanting to come hang out with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will definitely be at Camaro Fest too. So, and I know there's a lot of 5th generation Camaro owners that watch this show. So turn out. Camaro Fest is not going to be the same. It's going to be awesome. I'm super excited. Josh, I can't thank you enough for your time tonight, and I can't wait for our viewers to check this one out.
Great. Well, I really appreciate being on with you guys tonight, Jordan, Josh. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Head on over to OSS. Check him out. Show him some love. And with that being said, guys, we'll catch you in the next one. Brother, what are you still doing here? Check out some of these social medias below me. If you're not following, go change that.